Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and privilege to welcome you all at another knowledge sharing session. A couple of minutes before I was interviewed by the global financial media channel CNBC. They had a set of questions which is interesting. I think I should share it across. He asked me a question. Is the global economy recovering? Is the region financially stable? Is Kuwait as an economy which is producing oil and gas has been reporting huge surplus? What does it mean in terms of development plan? What about the real estate? What about the urbanization? What sort of cross-border opportunity you see between Qatar and the Gulf states and Kuwait? How do you foresee the global economic trend and the financial stability? Well, these questions are worth answering. That's precisely the reason why we have set in a mission today. With the changing face of the world, changing face of the financial crisis, again, new world order setting new opportunities. It is only fair. Public financial institutions like Doha Bank come and share their views, showcase the opportunities, clarify in transparent terms the market momentum, making sure bankers are profoundly sharing the knowledge to ensure right kind of partnership is built. Last month was a very hectic month for me. The beginning of the month, I was in Australia. On 3rd of April, we inaugurated our 12th operation in Sydney. When I was staying in Sydney, the ABC television, which is in my website, you can have a look at it, asked me a question. Oil price is tumbling. The gold is tumbling. What is this world is all about? I said, the real economies are going to perform. Financial economies have to convert as real. I thought I answered the question. I came back to Berlin. Qatar Investment Forum hosted a big reception on 15th. Me and my wife was there in Frankfurt and Berlin. That was the day, 15th of April, we had an extraordinary downturn. The gold nosedived almost 10%. China was slowing down. The emerging market was slowing down. And clearly, we have seen the reflection on the gold. And oil was, the Brent was quoting less than 100. The WTI was less than 90. Over 10%, over $120 is a reduction in the ounce of gold. The CNBC interviewed me in Brendan's Gate. What do you think of the changing dynamics now? The commodity-driven economies are going to slow down. I said, what was started as a liquidity crisis has changed as a funding crisis. The funding crisis moved to solvency crisis, and now it has become a sovereign crisis. Nothing has changed in the world in the last 4.5 years. Global governance is at stake. The real economies are here to make sure they perform. Financial economies are there to convert. Unless that change conspicuously, visibly accepted by people power, the world is not going to change. The common man is not going to get the value advantage. You're not going to get the gross welfare to the mass. That's the dictum. Bankers are no more trusted. Trust me. When I say this, I have, again, an illustration to make. After finishing Berlin, I reached Barcelona. I'm a visiting faculty in European University. That is the 40th anniversary of European University was scheduled on 20th. So I was there. To make use of my productive time, generally I share knowledge sharing workshop like this. Today I met my relationship, and tonight I'm showcasing what we know as bankers. I was asked to run a workshop for 3.5 hours. I do regularly for US as well as European universities. I asked the members, almost 200 students, MBA students were there. I asked them, how many of you wants to become bankers? No response. Absolutely no response. How many of you wants to work in JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, again, Deutsche, Citi? No response. One student stood up. He said, Doctor, where do you live? I know that you live in Qatar. I'm asking you which hotel in Barcelona, Spain you live. I said, Arts Hotel, Ritz-Carlton. Next to you there is a casino. Today, whether you go and play or today the regulators are playing in Cyprus, there's no difference. The bankers are today casino makers, shadow banking. He said we lose trust in the public financial system. Look at the young minds, what they try to interpret with the change in face of the world. This is real. This is not a fiction. That's real. Today, global governance is at stake. Unless you set in a universal standard in terms of accounting, valuation, securitization, setting standards which are global to make sure we live in an interconnected world, interdependent world, to set in new governance, new solutions to make sure the common man is protected, consumer is protected, the world at large is still will distrust the financial institutions. What has happened in Cyprus is extraordinary. You never tax a public deposits. You set a precedent by doing this. Whether it's a private or local, the banking is always global and public. A lot at stake by taxing the common man deposits. You lose trust. Looking at a global economics, which was pronounced a week before in spring meeting in Washington, if you look at a bigger picture, the global economy is at a downward risk. Still, the global growth is not going to be more than 3%. Advanced economies still underperforming, 1.2%. Euro technically under recession. US is costing between 2 to 2.5%, supposed to be. The quantitative easing, printing money, improving the liquidity has inflated the stock market. Every single stock market is blowing up. Dow Jones, 14% up. S&P, 12% up. NASDAQ, 8% up. UK, 9.5% up. FTSE is costing, in spite of downgrading by rating agencies for the financial stability. France is again 7.5% up. 4.5% up by Germany. World over, if you look at the bigger picture, the markets are up. India is flat. China is marginally down. The financial markets are still reeling under enormous amount of pressure. And you also look at the basic breakup in terms of the Gulf states. UAE is costing not less than, both the markets, both Dubai is up almost 28%. Kuwait is up 24%. When it comes to the rest of the markets, Abu Dhabi is up 22%. Oman is up. Qatar is up. Every single market, financial markets are up. It doesn't mean the global financial recovery is in full swing. If you look at the bigger picture, Euro is going through extraordinary downturn. The monetary policy and fiscal policy is not converging. While monetary policy is centralized, fiscal policy is still decentralized. Austerity measures as well as value creations are mutually exclusive. It's not working together. And result, we have seen a technical recession. We also have reasons to believe the Asian economies, whether it's China or India, Russia or Brussels, have got their own norms. China is slowing down. It was supposed to grow 8 plus. It has now regressed to 7.7. Still, it's a good growth, but it's the economic engine of the world today. If China is slowing down, the rest of the world is slowing down as well. When America was catching cold, the rest of them sneeze. Those days are concurrent today, and the expression is right for China today. India is going through stagflation. The inflation outweighs the growth, 5.7%. And again, when it comes to Russia, Brazil, inflation outweighs the growth. That's the world we're in. In the midst, the Gulf states, $1.6 trillion breakup. It's not an ordinary mechanism. If you look at the current account surplus as a percentage of GDP, it's over 20%. It's very significant in real substance. To give the breakdown, Saudi Arabia is $745 billion. Again, UAE is $375 billion. Qatar is $193 billion. Kuwait is $177 billion, between 175 to 177, taking oil at 65. Oman should do $74 to $75 billion. Bahrain should do $24 billion. Sum it up, it will tell you the results, which runs over 20% surplus. That's not ordinary financial stability in the world. Nowhere in the world you will have this economic momentum. But you are not isolated from the global crisis. You are insulated in terms of macroeconomics, but you are not isolated from the global crisis. That's what we learned. Every single state, if you look at it, they have expansionary fiscal policy. I was expecting the budget today in Kuwait. Perhaps it will come tomorrow. Last year's budget has been good. As long as the government expenditure drives the rest of the market, you will have economic momentum in full swing. Last year's budget, if you look at it, 21 billion KD was the expenditure, while revenue was 13 plus. There was a deficit, but rightfully so. The government expenditure drives the change. Now, if you look at the Kuwait economy as a whole, it's stable and functional. In substance, as I said, GDP is 175. Inflation is 3%. Current account surplus is 40%. That's a question asked by CNBC interpreter. Almost 40% of the GDP is a current account surplus. It means scope for expenditure is there to drive the change. And again, if you look at the per capita, it's moving in the right direction, $45,000. That's a good reflection any economy. If you look at the project breakdowns, around $16 billion for this fiscal year, between 13 to 14, out of which non-hydrocarbon is 61, hydrocarbon is $55 billion. $116 billion should have been the overall expenditure. That's not an ordinary expenditure. If you look at the Gulf region as a whole, that should produce not less than $377 billion US expenditure. These are disclosed budgets. If you look at the breakdowns, again, significant portion of the expenditure comes from Saudi Arabia. It said last year it spent that money. This year they have budgeted between 13 to 14, $121 billion. Kuwait is $116 billion. UAE is $62 billion. Qatar is $45 billion. And again, you have development expenditure, $8 billion from Bahrain, $24 billion from Oman, should drive the overall, the region, whether it is transport or power or water or construction. These are forces which will drive the economics of the states. The trade cycle will improve based on those economic wheels. That will drive the opportunities as well for businessmen. Liquidity is there in abundance, but the market momentum will get really triggered by the government expenditure. If you look at the project breakups, it is Silk City, is it rapid transport system, metropolitan. You have Al Zur, independent project with France GDF Suez. And again, you have Kuwait port with southern Kuwait. You have a huge project, $2.6 billion. So there are enough to rave about to see these are going to transcend to your business model to support your cash flows and profitability and productivity. The substance is to recognize this and make the best out of it. Again, sitting across in Qatar, I can tell you, extraordinary vibration. The country is running in huge fiscal and current account surplus. Diversification across the market, in multiple markets, multiple segments, investing on the sovereign funds. Vision 2030. Every single state has been set in, right kind of visions. 2030 by Qatar, 2030 by Abu Dhabi, 2020 by Saudi Arabia and Oman. So everyone has got a long-term vision and back it up with development plans as a short-term strategic initiative. That's going to drive the change for you. That's the very purpose of getting assembled today. In line with this concept and substance, we have a theme that is set in here as exchanging the visions on urban development. That's precisely the reason why we have set in right kind of speakers to get and deliver the purpose. And with me to support the purpose, Dr. Hamad Al-Asawi, the Secretary General of the Banking Union, is there. He's going to showcase the project space in the region, in Qatar, rather in Kuwait, in specific terms. Kuwait, when I looked at his presentation, is exciting. You're all going to be jumping in the seat to see this kind of opportunity you can grab. In concept, it's a substance. And again, it's not confined to the project space alone. Along with the projects, you have impediments as well. You have to get it right at the first time. The design has to be productive and positive. For me, to exhibit that kind of inputs, Stephen Gade, the PKF Technical Consult Group CEO, is here. The project is measurable, manageable in terms of risk and returns. You have to measure the risk to showcase the risk angle in terms of execution. While design is going to be showcased, execution risk needs to be measured and managed, for which I have a representative of KIO, Masood, is here, who is going to showcase the risk issues. But when you evolve, you also have to design it in such a way it's environmental safe. Safety comes in when it comes to sustainability. Whether it's water or electricity or power, you have to keep the green mission in perspective. To elucidate, Dr. Bashir from Qatar Foundation is here. And again, unless you have internal integration in terms of people, process, and technology, you will not be able to optimize the better returns, for which I have Mr. Ganesh Mohan from Boston Consultancy. Each one of them is going to take 10 to 15 minutes maximum. And every session, we'll break it up for one questions. And finally, we'll interact before we depart for dinner. That's the format. That's going to be interesting. I'm sure you're all going to enjoy as much as I do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.